Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked,
and sometimes what didn't,
you will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Today, you're going to listen to a very interesting conversation with Sriram Rangarajan, who's a data analytics guru who's worked across different maturity of organizations as well as different roles he has donned, from a developer to a management consultant to an enterprise architect now. He's working with IBM today. Earlier, he was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers as well as Informatica. And he shares his experience in terms of how do you look at data from a business outcome perspective and not necessarily from a technology, and some of the very interesting nuggets for beginners as well. Listen on.
Hi Sriram, welcome to Software People Stories today.
Thank you, Gayatri. It's nice. We'll have a good conversation now.
I know you for a very long time, Sriram, but I want you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
I'm in the data and AI for a very long time, at least analytics space. I worked in a lot of different areas, but my main focus is analytics, most recently more on the data and AI side.
So you started your career back in 90s in TCS, right? And before even AI was called AI, you were in that space of business intelligence as part of your Informatica world, right? So how has your world changed along with how the technology has evolved? Can you share a few things around that?
Yeah, sure. The analytics is always there, is that correct? So it's initially in mainframe, it's all everything is centralized. So still do the reporting, but it's optimized. It's very operational reporting. And there are people who used to do some statistical reporting and other things, but it's rare, not very common. What has changed is now the amount of data available and the variety of reports you can generate, and weaving that into the business process has changed. So otherwise, it's all there, and the reports are very operational oriented, and then maybe it isn't that operational report has been taken and then strategy was applied outside because it's all centralized reporting before. Now with a lot of pieces, you can do it separately. In terms of, if you see IBM, they organize this thing as a collection. Collect this initially, how do we collect from different devices, different applications, and then how do we organize them so that you can get meaningful analysis out of that. And the analysis where analytics plays now, either descriptive, predictive, prescriptive, all those kind of stuff, is that correct? And then you integrate that into business process. Yeah, it's all same thing, but initially it is all centralized. Now it's more distributed. There are different pieces where you can optimize. That's the only thing which is changing now.
Can you share some of the insights from your side? How has your life changed along with this? Any interesting stories there? I know when I was a Java developer, my view of the life was so small. And while I knew that there was a larger picture, but there was never a understanding of it. That relationship was never there. But today, I very clearly have that cause and effect. But any stories there, Sriram, that you want to share?
Yeah, definitely, because as you gain more experience, is that correct? Your perspective changes, correct? Initially, when you do at the early stage, it's more on analytic and report focus, where you're just doing that specific task. Is that correct? So as you gain more, when you become an enterprise architect with Informatica, and then also I was working with a lot of clients on the IBM side, so you get a lot more exposure, and then what you look at is overall business process. How does the data-driven approach help that business process? A lot of in a B2B world, mostly just how do you make from lead to opportunity, and then opportunity to the code to cash process overall. So which process, especially the data-driven process, some challenges when it is crossing the boundaries, correct? So the integration becomes a little bit harder, and then of course you want to have a integrated data to give holistic picture. Those experience comes as you mature and understand the big picture as well as the overall data set, and then how do we serve business leaders in terms of bringing these different objects together as part of the business lifecycle and serve their business domain, either it's marketing or it is in sales or service, customer success now. Yeah, all these they look at different lenses. It's same data through different lenses, and then also you also generate with the enterprise level metrics, which serves as a for a bigger picture. That's where the maturity comes in. Is that correct? When you're young, start to understand a little bit about the data, but you're really focused on your task. Is that correct? You don't get the big picture. As you get exposed more and more, and you work on different areas, you get the big picture, and you have an opportunity to work across the transaction and the ecosystem. Then you understand a little bit better, and how do we integrate, what are all the challenges, and how you look at overall, how do we prioritize, how do we make a difference, and end of the day, how do you bring all these things together towards the business outcome.
Very insightful, Sriram. In fact, when you were speaking about this, tons of questions come into my mind. One of the first things is you mentioned about how maturity curve changes, right? Based on domain as well as based on experience and looking at the big picture. You know that there are so many organizations now churning out data scientists, data engineers because of the need, right? Can those folks actually prepare? Some of our listeners are data scientists as well, data engineers. And how can they prepare themselves to fast track that, if you will, to intentionally look at the end to end? How can they prepare themselves? Anything that personally that you have done to make that happen?
I think the key is to understand the data. Like, correct? End of the day, the insights are coming from data. So a lot of, even when you do data science or data engineering, the key aspect is how do we integrate this data? How do we even, if you profile the data, try to understand what data it is, what story it is telling, correct? In terms of, and also in terms of a lot of data quality aspect. So try to understand the data and how you bring these data together. What are the challenges? That's a fundamental or foundation for anyone in the data world, either data engineering or data science. That's a key part. So you don't have to do in a lot more technological way, just the latest technology. A lot of databases are there. Even you can do it in Excel. So it's the same concept. How you just doesn't take a lot of open source data sets are there. So you go and look at those open source data set, and then look at in Excel, just if you don't have any tools to start with, and look at these 5 or 6 related data, how you are going to bring them together. What are all the challenges you have in terms of bringing them together? And then you also profile those data. Do you see any data quality issues, or when you're bringing together data integration issues? These are going to be the fundamental issues when you're going to deal with the data. Correct? So it doesn't matter. So I think that's where I think when you're going to enter into the data domain, you want to get comfortable with data, understanding what it means and how do we integrate, and even take it further. Just you can do in Excel itself aggregation and things like that. To some extent, understanding smaller set will give you that confidence, saying, how do I visualize, how do I play with this data, and then it's just a matter of how do we approach in terms of presenting that for the business outcome. Correct? That will come with experience. So key is, without knowing business outcome, just think from your angle, just what information's aggregation will help. what does this data means in terms of just profiling it, and integrating it. That will be a stepping stone for anyone. So if you are comfortable on that end, then it's more understanding different data set, how it's going to help towards the business outcome. That's the next stage. And then of course, then it is the third stage. What we say is, how do we integrate this? What you got as an insight from the analysis, either a descriptive, diagnostic, or prescriptive, or predictive, whatever it may be, and how do you integrate end of the day into the business application or business process? That's where the business team will see the benefit, and it'll help towards the outcome.
Extremely insightful. In fact, one of the things that I was thinking when you're talking about data quality, particularly when we are suggesting the business process change, at the end of the day, we want that is our big one, right? So when there are data quality issues, have you had instances where business said, okay, I'm ready to change, but if there is a blemish in the data in some shape or form, suddenly do they have you seen them go back or regress in their steps, or how have you managed that part? Because they, in the end of the day, proof of the pudding is in the data, and not always we have control on that.
Yeah, I think what we call as initially collection pieces, you're bringing together in a centralized place. Nowadays they call data lake, is that correct? Just for you to analyze. And the IBM called analyze phase, which is organize phase, which is nothing but how do we define this data? So one aspect is in terms of data quality, how good the data is, and one other aspect is how do we organize in terms of business unit wise, metadata in terms of defining the data definitions. All those aspects, is that correct? That's going to be challenging. It's not easy. So for data quality, where do you fix the data quality? So it's a lot more harder to fix in the application, because you want to fix in the source itself, because source system or application has different priorities. Data is not a priority unless you show them these are having a impact to their business process as well as their business outcome. It's very difficult to fix that in the source system. A lot of time, what data engineer, data scientists, they do in the middle. They fix all these things, but they can do so much. Is that correct? Only they can do standardized or limited. They cannot create the data. So data needs to be created. The application, you cannot. You can transform it, standardize it, some extent, but yeah, you get garbage. Then you can decipher some extent, but you cannot fully make that data quality issue go away. Is that correct? So it's more of a conversation with business team to showcase the impact of data quality, especially on the when it's not integrated. Is that correct? When it's crossing the boundaries of application, that has a biggest impact, because because a lot of people, what they look at, marketing looks at from their own angle. They don't see that much of issue when it is crossing the boundary from lead to opportunity, and then sales and marketing need to connect, and then similarly sales and customer service need to connect when they cross the boundary in terms of, and then that's where I think that's a smaller system, but there are a lot of boundaries like contract and other aspects. Like, correct? So when they cross these system boundaries or application boundaries, that's where the data quality plays a very key role, because if you cannot connect those data element, you won't get an integrated or holistic picture. So it's for you to showcase that one is really difficult for you to fix in the intermediate process, like in data engineering process or data science process. So you need to show the impact. You need to show it is a business outcome impact by doing it right. That's the way you get traction. Because a lot of time what happens is these application integration and data-driven approach is an afterthought. If it is part of the initial application development and initial planning, then this will be less of an issue. A lot of time they look at more application-centric, not data integration or data-driven analytics-centric. If that is weaved into the application development process, these issues will be minimal. I won't say it will be none, but at least it will be
Never
minimal.
go away. I agree.
Yeah.
That is true. It can never go away, but in the sense, some level of lineage is clearly understood by the application development team, then it becomes that much easier.
What do you see, Gayatri, in terms of what you are getting exposed to? What do you see in terms of data quality and data integration issues? What the business leader thinks in terms of their importance and how it is impacting their day-to-day operation?
So I am in the financial space, right? Some of the things that we are seeing really is that most of the data right now, all of it is in a data lake, and analytics get driven out of it. That to that extent, the need for reports or reporting has come down at an application level. Most of the reports kind of get generated at that centralized level, which is more, as you said, correlated. So different data sets come in and there is a correlation that gets in. That is one I'm seeing. And the other I'm also seeing is based on the usage pattern in different financial touch points. We are also seeing the funding also changing. So at that macro strategic level, in that sense, if there is more uptick in a specific channel, there is more higher and higher investment going in to make it fine tuned based on where customers are moving. That is one big change that we are seeing. The second is, I think, the what you mentioned about the data application development team and the users of business outcome are actually the same. Example, in application development, the product owners are the ones who are actually giving you the requirement, and it actually the data goes through the lake and then comes back, and their organization only is consuming the data as well. So to that extent, we are seeing a lot of the consumers and the producers are nearly as close as we can. So there is a distance that we used to have earlier, at least in my previous organizations and all. A decade back, there used to be a big difference. So there will be a central PMO function who used to keep looking at these reports, and they used to give some decisions, which by the time it comes to business, they have no idea why it is. There is also a time lapse. So now we are seeing that the distance between who makes a decision and why it is made is much smaller. I think these are two big trends, at least I am seeing in this space.
Yeah, that's very good. I think what you hit the right thing. Like, right, when you say from that application side that the data producers, in terms of business people, yeah, correct, they understand the application well in terms of what needs to be captured, and if they also consume the integrated data, they will see that gap well, and that way, it will also help them. What is in terms of addressing these data quality issues, and they see where to put the value, where to put the effort in terms of generating the value. Is that correct? Yeah. So one other thing what I have seen is a lot of these data lake projects have taken fast track, especially for very large organization, complex organization, and they don't have a good data definition, data governance, and quality. And so I think that's a one aspect a lot of people are struggling with. So, but as you said, also based on the funding approach and the priority, take that area within the whole, because we cannot boil the ocean. So take that one area and then do end to end from in terms of what we collect, how do we organize and improve the data quality, and then do analyze and generate insights and embed that in the business process. Yeah. So a lot of time what happens is people look at silo, like, right? They look at the data ops, AI ops or ML ops or sec ops. I would say we should look at more business ops, business centric approach. Of course, you need to operationalize the whole thing, but look at the entire process in terms of collection to infusing that into the business process and application at a one functional or one sub-functional area, and then achieve that that way you know this is working end to end, correct? So it improves the application capture process as well as decision making process for that entire business unit. So I think more and more people will move towards that. I think and what they call data fabrics, because of the data is still a lot of areas. It's not centralized in terms of reporting. It is sitting in multiple areas, correct? And the definition, and especially for very large enterprise customer, where the multiple CRM, multiple ERP are there, systems are there, where the harmonization also, like master data harmonization, those also plays a key role in terms of standardizing the definitions, and so that it can be reported consistently across the enterprise. So that's another trend, and some of them are smaller. They have standardized one CRM, mostly in Salesforce and ERP in one of those Oracle or SAP. Yeah, they might be able to integrate well, but a lot of bigger, complex application, the data is stored in multiple places. That's one of the challenges. And also, a lot of people who are now moving to the cloud, correct? So part of that is they may not have moved everything to the cloud. So a lot of things are sitting in on-prem and cloud and multiple clouds. And it's very important for the organization to focus on certain areas and then make sure they have a good definition and do the end-to-end process. That way they understand what all the bottlenecks are there, and then that way they can standardize the framework from collection to ultimately infusing the value of the business insight into the application.
So when we are talking about data quality and business process, everything, right? One of the biggest hidden iron fist, if you will, is the regulatory setup, right? The European now GDPR, GDPR is changing now. India is coming up with its own regulatory act. I know that California had a data privacy act. I mean, there's just so many such regulatory acts that come in, which primarily protect their own citizens or citizens' data. Right? In the end of the day, which is from a privacy perspective or from a payment regulatory perspective or foreign exchange, ensuring that the sovereignty is not lost, or from a government or political perspective. So this data itself is playing so much of different needs and roles. So if when we look at that, right, what kind of a trends do you think is going from future perspective?
Yeah, I think as you said, regulation is playing an important role. Before it was not looked from that angle, so it's very only a certain industry. What people need to look at is regulation is part of their data framework. So how do you anonymize? How do you capture at the aggregate level? Sometimes it's a bigger pain when you want to look at at a specific customer level, but aggregation level should not matter. So, and then also in terms of how you're using these data, is that correct? So that consensus and able to take the customer input and incorporate if they don't want to be part of the campaign or mailing list. So all those aspects you need to take care part of your data integration process or the end-to-end data processing process, correct? So that becomes a critical, because every country, even every state, within the United States, California has a different law, privacy law. So every states are going to be, in some countries are going to have a different law. But overall, it's the same thing, is that correct? In terms of they want to protect the customer in terms of what you're collecting as an intent. If they are validating that intent and you're keeping and using only for that intent, and if you are allowed to do it beyond that intent, you also capture that as a consent from the customer and then use it. So I think data is going to be key, because we are in the real-time online world where we are generating in a B2, especially on a B2C world, is that correct? Business to consumer world, where we generate a lot of data, and that becomes important that metadata becomes very important for these companies to better understand the customer. So how and when, where they will use it is going to become a big part of the future. Is that correct? So companies are going to give incentive. Already they are giving incentive to share the data, and it's critical to weave that into the data processing framework. So how do you capture those, and how do you how do you process that based on the customer consent or lack of consent or modification to the consent? That is going to be the key, and I think that area is still maturing. Is that correct? GDPR has taken effort only about a year back. Yeah, that's going to be, it's going, because a lot of existing process don't take care that process very well. So yeah, that requires a lot of thought process, because you are now doing it after you have built the whole framework. You're trying to fix it. Is that correct? Because that's going to be very tough. You're putting a band-aid on the existing process, and sometime when they move to cloud or when they move from one system to another system, that's a great opportunity for them to have that process in place, so that it is easily those requests can be integrated, and they can adhere to the privacy law. So yeah, that's a big trend now. It is now people have to adhere to just to be compliant.
Yeah. Sriram, I think if we talk about your own development, right? You spent about 10 years or so as a consultant in PwC, and another a long stint in Informatica as an architect. So, and the previous big stint was, I think, you had worked in several companies in the previous decade. So, if we look at these three different decades of your own work, right, what are the big differences that you are seeing within yourself, right? Because our own problem solving skills differ across. So, what are the things that you are observing in your own yourself, and that you can share for our listeners that they can take away?
Yeah, I think as I said before the consulting world, it's more task centric views. Like, right, just you look at what is given from that perspective. You look at in consulting world, you cannot. Sometime I had an opportunity to work on a strategy, but a lot of time it is very fixed strategy. You need to execute. Is that correct? Like some of them are compliance project where we integrate a lot of physician spend for the state reporting. I've done a lot of those, and some areas where we brought the customer data from for a retail, both the real time and as well as from the different different areas together. Just for giving customer holistic view. So it's very specific in terms of what is in scope. So when I went to Informatica, it's a little bit different, because when you go into the enterprise data architect role, you look at holistic overall business process across the company. How do we enable different business units, and then you look at overall organization. So you tend to get more exposure in terms of I'll lead to cash process, different, like lead to opportunity to code, and code to order. All those aspects, how they integrate, how does the data will come together in terms of serving these different business unit, in terms of enabling the sales leaders, enabling the marketing leaders, and others. That correct? So that's a little bit different view. And now I'm on the IBM more on the platform side. It's a little bit different, and I had opportunity to do Informatica also. That one aspect is product usage. That's another thing which is becoming big for us to understand the customer better. when you're enabling the product, how much platform can capture that metadata in terms of usage, what part they are using well, what part they are not using well, and what we can learn from that. How do we change the application to make that that overall product experience better? And then some of the other companies are also doing more capturing metadata in terms of platform experience. If there are issues, either in performance or in error handling, so they're generating those type of messages. So it is critical to take that metadata, and then it'll help you to make the customer experience better in terms of product usage as well as platform experience. Correct? So there are a lot of different aspects I got exposed in when I'm doing different things. So it's, as IBM Consulting, it's more focused on delivery and on specific objective. But in an enterprise architect, it is overall looking at the holistic picture of the B2B for Informatica, and looking at that aspect and how do we serve different business leaders. And then for the IBM, it's more of a platform. How do we make these platform more resilient? And then how do we make sure the platforms experience overall in terms of platform usage as well as product experience? How do we make it better? How do we understand the customer usage patterns so that we can improve that in terms of outcome? So it's just looking at different data sets through different lenses based on what you're doing. Is that correct? End of the day, it's the same thing. As I said, just understanding the data and looking at integrating this data, and then looking a little bit on the outcome side. As you get more exposure on the wider range, what it gives you a different perspective in terms of what we can do and what are all the possibilities. Is that correct? So instead of saying, okay, you're given this task, or you're just looking at a specific area, but you can now see what is possible based on what you have. That's a different view, different opportunity for you to excel. Is that correct?
True. It's basically based on which, where is your vantage point of what you're viewing, from what is the skill sets available, and where you want to take your product or a platform to make a whole lot of difference, right? I know it's been an extremely interesting conversation for me, Sriram, and seeing from your lenses how data has moved, as well as what data engineers and scientists can really do. Any thoughts or words of wisdom that you want to share to our listeners?
Covered very high level. Keep your foundation very strong, and then try to learn even early on how your work is impacting overall business outcome. So that gives you much bigger picture, even though you're doing at a smaller level. But it's very difficult initially. But with a mentor, look at how you are impacting the bigger picture. And of course, then you go much more technology deep into the data engineering. Is that correct? So what are all the different ways you can optimize your data integration flow, and how do you bring that data together for storage optimization? So at the end of the day, you're integrating this data and putting in an optimized storage, whether it is a Netezza or Redshift or it is a Snowflake. These are all different way of storing the data in an optimized way for analytical usage. If you're a data scientist, then you take the optimized storage so that you can get different analytical result. And how do you take that and train for a business objective or business goal? Like, correct? It could be a lead prediction, lead scoring, or it is an opportunity, closing probability, or it could be a decision optimization in terms of supply versus demand. How do we how do we order supply based on the demand. So you look at the demand forecast and you fine tune your supply in terms of decision optimization. So these are all a different problem you try to solve. But at the end of the day, you have to have a foundational understanding of data, and then look at what you're serving as a bigger goal. That gives you the confidence and the purpose why you're doing. And then you go deeper into your technology domain, and how do you make sure your flow and the integration serves our data science solution serves the overall, from the technology angle, serves in a better way. Of course, you have to look at the business outcome also, but you look at both the lenses and make sure you're good at both. So I think once you have a business outcome lens, then you have a lot of opportunity to do different possibilities. Then you look at even technology challenge from a different angle, business perspective angle. That's what I would say early on. You get into that, then you will be better off. I think a lot of these data scientists have that opportunity because it is weaved into the business process. So they look at this data a little bit differently because they are training it and they are predicting it. There's a lot of pressure on them, and data engineering also is becoming more and more complex because of this heterogeneous distributed environment, and optimizing it is becoming more complex.
Thank you so much, Sriram. I think very great piece of advice in terms of keeping your focus on our foundation and ensure that you have alignment with purpose, right? Because today technology, we a set of toolkits. Tomorrow it may change, but these fundamentals will not change. I think that is the key area that you said. Thank you so much for your time, Sriram. I really appreciate it and wish you a very happy New Year 2022, and Happy New Year to all the listeners too.
Thank you for giving me opportunity to talk about the data. Thanks.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.